Welcome to Arthur Brown Photography. It's a few weeks since I've managed to do a vlog, but today I'm going to talk about the Canon 135mm f2 telephoto lens, or it's the 135 f2.L telephoto lens. This is the beast here. I mean, in the old days when we used film cameras, 135 used to be quite a common length for a medium telephoto lens. It was unusual to get one with as large aperture as this. I think in the old days I did have a Soligor 135 f2. The Canon 135 f2.L, I have read, is one of the sharpest lenses that Canon make. Now I have no way of verifying this, but I can assure you that the results from this lens are pretty good, and it is very, very, very sharp. The lens itself is reasonably compact. It weighs about, I'm going to have to cheat here and look at this, about 750 grams, which is half the weight of the 70-200 Canon zoom, f2.8L zoom, and for any American viewers, that works out at about 26.5 ounces for this lens, and about 52.5 ounces for the larger one. As I say, it's renowned to be a very sharp lens. It has a fast aperture, and you can see the if I come in close with the lens here, you can see the large front element. But it isn't too heavy, it isn't too large, and it's quite a reasonable weight to carry around with you. I mean, I do like to shoot with a 70-200 zoom f2.8L, but it is very heavy. If you've got to carry it around all day, it is quite a weight. Now this Canon lens comes with the usual ridiculous Canon plastic lens hood, which actually doubles the size of the unit. I don't like these lens hoods, because they are plastic. They're easy to lose, easy to break, very, very expensive to replace. So what I tend to do with my telephotos is to use an alternative lens hood. Now I don't like to use a lens without a lens hood, because the lens hood does add some protection if you whack it against anything. So I tend to buy these short metal barrel type lens hoods. Now this 135 lens has a 72mm lens thread on it, and so I've got a 72mm short metal lens hood, and that has an outside diameter of 77 millimeters, which means that the fairly standard Canon 77mm lens cap will fit on the front of it. This is a good portrait lens. I mean, probably for portraits, I tend to use the Canon 85mm f1.8, or I use this. It's quite a flattering lens. Obviously, you have to be slightly further away from your subject, but it does compress the features, and it does give a flattering portrait picture. Being an aperture of f2, it does have very shallow depth of field. Now this could be an advantage if you're wanting it to isolate a subject against a blurred background. It's great for that type of thing, but you do have to make sure that the subject's face onto you, and you have enough depth of field to get nose and ears in focus at the same time. If I just put a picture up here now. This is a shot I took actually at Disneyland early last year, at Disneyland Paris, of a young couple who were having their photographs taken by another photographer. But you'll note from that, it's a good example of the depth of field. The young man is perfectly in focus, but the young woman who's stood just beyond him is actually out of focus. And this does illustrate the shallow depth of field that you get with this lens, and you would have to stop down quite a bit to get them in focus if they were standing in this position. If, of course, they were both standing forwards looking at you, and they were in the same plane, they would both be in focus. If we go on to another photograph, I mean, here's one of a bird of prey that I took, and that does show how you can isolate the subject against a nice blurred background. It is good for that to have these portraits, having a little bit more length. You don't have to get quite so close, particularly to a dog like this that's showing its teeth. If I put up another photograph now, this is a completely different use for the lens, and that is in landscape photography. It can be quite useful if you're doing long distance landscapes, because it gives a nice compressed effect. It's the exact opposite of the wide angle lens. It actually compresses the landscape in and makes quite an interesting composition. Again, it's good for portraits like this. Obviously, this one was shot at f2.6, so the depth of field isn't quite so shallow, but it's still you get a nice bit of out of focus background for the other riders and the fields in the background. Here's another landscape shot that I took, and again, it's a nicely compressed perspective of an old house, crumbling house across the fields that have been recently harvested. Again, this another photograph taken at Disneyland in Paris. It shows the the depth of field. These photographs, this one and the next one I'll show you, were taken actually as the light was fading. So I really did need to shoot wide open at f2.8, and this one was taken at 1/250th of a second. So that's probably about the limit of the. You can hold a length of a lens of this length without risking camera shake. But this was taken wide open at f2. And again, this next one. This is one of the Disney princesses. I'm not sure which one it is, but again, it's nicely isolated against a blurred background. Picture of Mickey Mouse. Again, there was enough depth of field at f2 there to get most of his face in focus. And again, it was getting dark, but I still managed to get a good shot here at 1/200th of a second. Another advantage of this type of lens is actually he's able to get in close to things without actually standing too close to them. And you can see I've got a shot I put up now of a it's actually the symbol off an old Jaguar car. I think I probably took it at a motor museum or a car show. And again, you can get right in close. Another use for this lens is actually good for street photography as well, because you can get in without getting too close and embarrassing your subjects too much. Here's one I took of a lady having a cigarette break, and she was quite happy to be photographed, but I'm not sure she would have been if I'd got in close with a 50mm or 35mm lens. And again, you can see I've just put one final portrait up. This is one that I took at a car show a couple of years ago, and you can see the remarkable level of detail that you can get with this lens. So, right, there's a beast with its short lens hood on. I'll put the cap on. So this is 135mm on a full frame camera. Quite a lot of the time I actually use it on a crop sensor camera as well, because it gives an equivalent 35mm equivalent focal length of 216mm, still with the f2 aperture, and it's a lot lighter than carrying around a large zoom to try and get that focal length. It is quite useful again for for sports or event photography, where you're trying to get that little bit of reach with your lens. So, well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed looking at my sample photographs, and please remember to look out for my next video. So bye for now from Arthur Brown Photography.